For $3, you can end every roach, ant, bedbug, and termite infestation in your home, permanently. Not for a month, not until the next season, permanently. There's a white powder sitting on a shelf at your local hardware store right now, priced between $3 and $5, that has a 100% kill rate on virtually every crawling insect known to man. And here's the part that will make your blood boil. The $26 billion pest control industry has known about this for decades. They didn't bury it because it didn't work. They buried it because it works too well. Because if you knew about this, you would never call an exterminator again. You would never buy another can of Raid again. And their entire business model, built on keeping you infested, afraid, and paying monthly, would collapse overnight. Welcome to the Buried Blueprint. I'm going to show you exactly what this powder is, where to buy it, and precisely how to use it to wipe out every bug in your home for years. If you believe corporations hide information from you to protect their profits, hit subscribe right now and ring that bell. Because what we do here is drag those secrets into the light, one blueprint at a time. Now, before we talk about what Big Pest Control did to suppress this, let's talk about where this solution actually comes from, because its track record goes back further than chemical companies want you to think. Long before the first can of Raid was ever manufactured, long before Terminix existed, before any of these chemical corporations were even a concept, early farmers and indigenous populations across multiple continents had already solved the pest problem. They had massive grain storage silos, structures holding thousands of pounds of food that needed to stay pest-free for years. They couldn't afford to lose their harvest to insects. And they didn't because they crushed a naturally occurring sedimentary rock called diatomite into a fine powder and lined the floors, walls, and entry points of those silos with it. Grain stored this way stayed completely protected. No infestations, no repeat applications, no toxic fumes. Just a simple, ancient, devastatingly effective physical barrier. This knowledge was passed down, used practically, and it worked flawlessly for generations. The bugs never adapted. They never built resistance, because you cannot evolve your way out of physics. So, what changed? What happened between these ancient, successful applications and the world we live in today, where the average American homeowner spends between $300 and $1,500 every single year on pest control services that, by design, never fully solve the problem? What changed was the 1940s. World War II accelerated chemical manufacturing on a scale the world had never seen. When the war ended, those massive chemical production facilities needed a new market. Synthetic pesticides became that market. Companies began mass-producing chemical neurotoxin sprays, and they were aggressively pushed into American homes as the modern, scientific solution. The problem was not that the old methods stopped working. Diatomaceous Earth didn't suddenly lose its effectiveness. The problem was simple, and it was entirely financial. You cannot patent a rock. You cannot own diatomite. It forms naturally in lake beds all over the planet, and no corporation can put a lock on it. That meant they could not build a monopoly around it. They could not charge you subscription prices for it. They could not create the repeat purchase cycle that makes pest control one of the most profitable industries in America. So the industry collectively pivoted. They flooded the market with their patented chemical formulas. They trained a generation of exterminators to use their products exclusively. They ran advertising that made you equate pest control with spraying chemicals. And slowly, quietly, the knowledge of diatomaceous earth was pushed to the margins. Here is what that did. Do not buy pool-grade diatomaceous earth. I need you to hear this clearly. Pool-grade DE has been chemically treated and can be hazardous to your lungs, food-grade only. Brands like Harris and Safer Brand are widely available, and a standard bag will cost you between $3 and $5. Step 2. Prepare your applicator. Do not pour this directly from the bag in thick piles. That is the mistake most people make, and it dramatically reduces effectiveness. Bugs will walk around a thick pile. You want a microscopic dusting, barely visible to the naked eye. The best applicator is a simple powder duster, which you can find for a few dollars, or you can use a clean squeeze bottle. You are puffing a fine cloud, not packing a layer. Step 3. Identify your target zones. The most effective placement points are along all baseboards in every room, behind and underneath your refrigerator and stove, inside cabinet hinges and the gaps beneath cabinet kickplates, around any pipe entry points under sinks, along window sills and door frames, in the corners of closets, inside wall voids if accessible, and in your attic and crawl space if applicable for termite prevention. For bedbugs specifically, apply along the bed frame, behind the headboard, along the baseboard, surrounding the bed, and inside the box spring frame. Step 4. Application method. Hold your duster or squeeze bottle a few inches from the surface and apply a light, even puff. You should barely be able to see it settled on the surface. If it looks like you laid a thick coat of flour, you used too much. A barely visible haze is perfect. Step 5. Keep it dry. DE loses its mechanical cutting ability when it gets wet. If you treat a baseboard and it later gets mopped with water, simply let it dry completely or reapply. In dry areas, a single application can remain effective for years without any attention at all. One safety note. While food-grade DE is non-toxic, the fine powder is still a dust. When applying in confined spaces, wear a basic dust mask. This is not because it is chemically dangerous. It is because inhaling any fine powder in large amounts is simply not good for your respiratory system. Take the same precaution you would take with any powder application. Within 24 to 72 hours of application, you will begin to find dead insects. Not relocated insects, not insects that move to another room, dead insects. Any bug that crosses your DE barrier cannot survive. Within a week, populations that have been established in your home for potentially years will be eliminated, and the powder will continue working silently, day and night, for as long as it stays in place. Let's put some numbers next to what you just learned. You spent somewhere between $3 and $5. A quarterly Exterminator subscription, up to $1,200 a year, every year, indefinitely. A professional bedbug treatment, between $1,000 and $5,000, and often requires multiple visits. A professional termite treatment for a standard home, anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000. The pest control and chemical pesticide industry generates $26 billion annually in the United States alone. That revenue depends entirely on you not knowing what you now know. The industry prays you never find this out. They have built an empire on a simple premise. Keep the problem partially solved, never fully solved, and collect recurring payments forever. One bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth from your local hardware store shatters that model completely. If this opened your eyes, share this video right now. Send it to a homeowner. Post it. The more people who know, the less power these companies hold. Subscribe to The Buried Blueprint, because this channel exists for one reason: to put the knowledge they buried back into your hands, for free. The next blueprint opens soon, and what's inside is even heavier. It costs you right now. A single bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth costs between $3 and $5. One application can actively protect your home for years. A standard quarterly pest control subscription from a major exterminator company runs between $400 and $1,200 a year. A targeted termite treatment can cost between $2,000 and $8,000. A bedbug remediation from a professional service can cost between $1,000 and $5,000 per treatment. And the chemical sprays those professionals use? Insects develop genetic resistance to them. It is documented science. Bugs breed in cycles fast enough that within just a few generations, a population can mutate to become immune to a specific chemical compound, so the spray stops working. You call again. They come back. You pay again. The cycle never ends. That is not an accident. That is the business model. Before I give you the exact formula, I need to tell you something important. This powder is just one entry in a much larger archive of suppressed home and survival solutions that corporations have spent decades and billions of dollars keeping out of mainstream conversation. If you want access to the complete collection, every buried method we have documented, check the link in the description right now. It leads to the Complete Buried Blueprint Vault, which contains dozens of classified survival and home DIY guides covering everything from energy costs to structural repair to water filtration. Go bookmark it. But stay right here, because exactly how you apply this changes everything. Now let's talk about why this powder is physically, chemically, and biologically impossible to defeat. When you buy a can of Raid, or when an exterminator sprays your baseboards, they are delivering a chemical neurotoxin. That chemical attacks the insect's nervous system. And here is the critical vulnerability in that approach. Chemicals can be adapted to. Every time a pest population is exposed to a chemical and a small percentage survives due to a slight genetic variation, that surviving population reproduces and passes on that resistance. Over successive generations, the resistance compounds. This is not a theory. It is observable, documented biology. Roaches have already developed resistance to multiple classes of commercial insecticides. It is a published scientific fact. Diatomaceous earth does not care about any of that. It is not a chemical attack. It is a mechanical attack. Under a microscope, food-grade diatomaceous earth looks like shards of broken glass. It is made from the fossilized remains of diatoms, microscopic aquatic organisms, whose cell walls are composed of silica. Those fossilized shells are geometrically jagged at a scale invisible to the human eye, but enormous relative to an insect's body. When a roach, an ant, a bedbug, or a termite walks across a surface dusted with DE, those microscopic razor edges physically slice through the waxy, protective coating on the insect's exoskeleton. That coating is called the Epicuticle, and it is the insect's entire defense against moisture loss. Once it is compromised, the insect cannot retain its bodily fluids. It dehydrates rapidly and dies. There is no nervous system to adapt. There is no chemical formula to mutate against. It is a physical cutting mechanism. You cannot evolve armor fast enough to outpace fossilized silica blades. The kill is inevitable, and it is permanent as long as the powder remains in place and stays dry. Here's exactly how you use it. Step 1. Buying the right product. Go to any hardware store, farm supply store, or order online. You are looking for exactly one thing: food-grade diatomaceous earth. It will say food grade on the label. This is non-toxic to humans and pets when used as direct